Competitive programming. I have seen many people look at competitive programming to be able to crack it or to get a good rating or rank in it to get a job offer. In this video, I will try to clear some misconceptions regarding competitive programming while we solve one of the problems on LeetCode, that is twosome. Watch this video till the end as I will be sharing a systematic approach to solve any technical interview or competitive programming problem. My name is Aditya Shenoy from BrainyThings, where I make programming simple and fun. According to YouTube statistics, about 25% of people who watch my videos are actually subscribed to my channel. So if you want to see my content in future, I will appreciate it if you click the subscribe button. It is free and you can always change your mind in future. Competitive programming is a way where your ability to solve problems by bringing your learned ability is tested. Companies don't care about your ratings or rankings if you're not able to solve their problems. And you can easily copy and paste the solutions to quickly solve problems on competitive programming sites. If you know that, companies also know that. So there is no point in aiming to get a good rating or ranking on these sites. Let's see how these competitive programming sites help you learn problem solving ability that will actually help in your technical interviews with an example. So over here we have a twosome problem. I have chosen an easy problem so that I can focus on telling you the systematic approach to solve a problem. You can take this approach and solve any problem on competitive programming as well as in technical interviews. So the first step is to understand what's the problem. And this line over here, which tells you the actual input and the function that you want to do and the output. Given an array of integers, nums, and an integer target, return indices of the two numbers such that they add up to a target. And most likely in a technical interview, you are told only this amount of information. And most of the people at this stage jump to coding part because they might have solved this similar problem on competitive programming sites, or they may want to show that I'm a quick learner, I'm understanding the problem very fast. But that is completely wrong. You are approaching the problem without understanding the whole picture of it. So that brings me to the second step of the approach, that is assumptions and constraints. Before reading the assumptions and constraints, you have to train yourself in such a way that listening to this problem should raise these questions about assumptions and constraints automatically before you even read this. So if I'm given this problem, I might think what I will do if the input array is empty. And these are the constraints of the data structures. Whether the length of the input array can be 0, 1, because if there is only one element allowed, then can we use the same element twice? For example, in this example, if the target is 6 and assume that there is just one element of 3, so that we can use the same element, 3 plus 3 is 6. So is it allowed, or do we have to take different elements for this? And what will happen if, for example, over here in this example, you can see there is 2, 7, and in place of 11 and 15, if 2, 7 again repeats, so which indices should I write in? 0, 1, 2, 3, or both? And then the interviewer might reveal these assumptions that you may assume that each input would have exactly one solution and you may not use the same element twice. And regarding the data structure constraints, in competitive programming, it is explicitly mentioned over here. And in technical interviews, this information will not be that obvious. Instead of just reading out all these assumptions and constraints, you just have to train yourself to just read this and try to not read the other lines and see whether you can take this as a technical interview question and think of these assumptions. And there is no problem if you are not able to get all the assumptions in one place. And once you start practicing more and more problems like this, your brain will try to find those constraints automatically before you even jump to the code, because once you start practicing, you will understand the importance of this. And these constraints and assumptions will make or break your code. So in the assumptions and constraints step, the you should think of and ask assumptions and constraints of data structures. For example, in array, if the array can contain 0 elements, one element, or whatever the smallest element, or in linked list, if you are given a problem of linked list, will the linked list be empty? If a tree is given, Is there a chance that there are zero nodes in that tree, zero nodes in the graph? These are the constraints of data structures. And regarding the assumptions and constraints of the values, is the array sorted? Is Will the array contain duplicate elements? Will the array contain only positive integers or negative integers as well? Because for positive integer you can do some more optimizations, but over here in the example over here you might see that all the example values are positive integers, but when you ask explicitly this to your interviewer, they might tell you that the value of this array can be negative as well. So before writing any code or making any assumptions yourself, you have to ask this to your interviewers. And competitive programming just trains you for that. You have to train yourself in such a way that if you are given a problem, you understand the whole picture first and then jump to coding. And after this, you might think, yeah, I have understood all the problem. Let's jump to code. No. And this is our third step of the approach, that is baby approach. And in this step, you have to state the brute force approach that you will apply. So you should not waste your time writing the code for the brute force approach, because this solution is the worst solution that is possible. But telling this brute force approach will give you a heads up, and it might reveal some more assumptions and constraints in the process. And how to think of a brute force approach? For understanding the brute force approach, I like to think, what will I do if I was very young in age and I was given this problem? At that time, I was not able to quickly calculate everything. So, what will I do if I am given a problem in that state? So, maybe I will do 2 and 7. I will wait and add 2 plus 7 is 9. Is that correct? Yes. So, I will point this, like these are the answer. Similarly for this, 3 and 2 is 5, so not, so that is not the answer. 2 4, yes, that is 6, and so I will return this answer. And once you think of this approach, you do not have to say that you are thinking by this approach, but you can convert this thought into an actual algorithmic language. Like I will take two loops that will check one by one element and see if their sum is equal to the target. So that is the exact thing that we have thought in the baby approach, but for interviewer it will be a brute force algorithm and not a baby approach. And after stating the brute force algorithm, that is your baby approach, to your interviewer, it is a good practice that you also tell what will be the time complexity and the space complexity if you follow that approach. So in our case, it will be O of n square, because we will be testing for all the elements, all the pair of elements in this array, that is, or that contains n elements. So due to nested loops, the time complexity will be O of n square. And for the space complexity, we are not storing any information as such. So our space complexity will be O of 1, that is constant. Now we have to actually solve the problem. So instead of thinking of this problem with the similar problem or applying some tricks, tips, or whatever you have learned, think of this problem as if there is no computer over here and you are given this problem, this array and this target, and you are told this to solve this manually. And most likely the way your brain will solve this will be the optimized way that you should write the code in. And this has worked for me in multiple number of times. So if I'm given this problem, this array, I will first look into the array. And once I have looked into all the elements of this array, I will try to find the pairs. So in this, if I see number 2, I have already seen some 7 in this array. And this storing of information, that I have seen this information before, will be translated in storing this information into a variable or data structure. So this will be my final approach, where I will scan all the elements of my input array and store them to remember all the elements that they are present in our input array. And to find the pairs, I will revisit this array and check number one by one. For example, if there is 2 and my target is 9, I know that I want a 7 to be present in this array for me to get that answer. I will just check back in my memory whether I have stored some 7 or not, and there will be 7. But just knowing that whether it is present or not, that is true or false, we don't want to return a boolean value, that is if this contains or not. We want to return the indices. So while storing the information of the values, that whether it is present or not, we also have to store some extra information about those elements, that is the index. And for quickly checking whether a value is present or not and storing some metadata of that information, we can use dictionary or hash map. And once we check whether the pairing element that will sum to target, we can extract the index of that element, and while traversing for the second time, we can also keep track of the index of the first element. So let's see this in an actual code. So first I need to store all the elements and their indices so that I can easily look up whether a value is present or not. So I will create a dictionary. This is a keyword as it is already color highlighted, so I will use a underscore, and I will create a dictionary of elements that maps to their index for index and elements present in enumerated input array nums. So this is a dictionary comprehension, or which is very similar to list comprehension. Over here I have traversed for all the index and its corresponding element in the nums array. I am using enumerate function, which returns this tuple of index and element of the array that is passed over here. And in the dictionary, I want to store elements as the key of the dictionary and index as the value, because I want to fetch particular index of that element as the answer. And once this is done, that is one scan of this done, which will be having a time complexity of O of n. Now we can scan this input array again to find the pairs. So I will do for index again element in enumerate nums. I am keeping track of this index because remember that our output should contain the index of the matching pairs whose sum is equal to the target. So I need to keep track of the index, and I have already stored the index of our answer in the dictionary. So for each element, I will check whether target minus element is present in our custom dictionary that we have created. If that is the case, we can return a list, because they want a list as the output, list of index. And as over here it is mentioned, you can return the answer in any order. So I can use index of the first element and the index of target minus element, which is present in the dictionary. We can retrieve that information very easily by using this target minus lm, that is target minus element, as a key. So that will return me where is that element exactly present in the array. This code is not yet complete because we have not taken into account the assumptions that is written over here. Exactly one solution is okay because we are directly returning that, but for the second assumption over here, that is you may not use the same element twice. So in this example, in 3 to 4, if we scan all the elements, that is 3 to 4, and once we start this for loop, that is the second pass, once we get this 3, we will search for 6 minus 3 in the array, and 3 is already present, but that is the same element, and it is mentioned over here that you may not use the same element twice. And if we run this code just like this, it will return a 0 0, but that is not allowed. So apart from this, we have to also check whether index and the current index is not equal to the target minus element. That is, these two elements that we are going to return should not be equal, and once this is true, only then you have to return this. So this algorithm was derived just by thinking how will you solve this problem manually. If you are finding this video helpful, please click the like button to encourage the YouTube algorithm to recommend this video to more people. And if I run this code, my code has been accepted, and there is no problem or any shame where you are in the beginning stage and you are not comfortable to come up with the approach like this by manual approach. So in that case, you can refer to the solutions, and it is clearly mentioned over here that what we can do and how to approach this problem. But you should not look into this solution just for submitting the answer. You have to understand where what thought process you should have added more, and you should you should understand why it is more efficient than the brute force approach and what error I am facing. So this solution tab is for your learning and not just for submitting the answer. So keep this in mind, and if you're stuck and if you're stuck for a long time and you have tried a lot, you can refer to this solution tab and check for the answer and translate it to your language. Here it is mentioned in Java. I will look into the approach and why this approach has been taken, why this is optimized in the next solution that is mentioned, and I will convert that solution into my language, which is Python 3. If you give this answer to your interviewer, the interviewer most likely will ask you, is there any other optimized way? And if you receive this follow-up question, then this approach or this manual approach that you have thought might be suboptimal. That is a clear hint that your interviewer is giving you. If you want to optimize this approach even more, you have to go to the next step of the systematic approach, that is manually hard approach. So for that, I will open up my terminal and import random library and create a random list which contains random integers between 1 to 100 for 50 elements. So this is an array of 50 elements, 50 random elements between 1 to 100, and this is a wrong assumption over here because this number can be negative as well. So I can change this to -100 to 100. If you are given a harder problem like this, your brain will not follow the same approach as it will follow for the smaller inputs or easier inputs. So think of how will you solve this problem manually. You might not able to remember everything in your brain. This is 50 numbers. It is sometimes harder for our brain to even remember the 10-digit phone numbers. So for remembering 50 integers between -100 to 100, it is very hard for our brain to remember all these numbers. And that was exactly what we were doing in our initial approach. So what you will do if you are given this problem? You might not want to remember everything. For example, if I am given a number with a target of -20, which is the sum of this, and if I start reversing the numbers one by one, because this is a long list, I will not be able to remember all of this. So 22 minus 71. So I have just seen 22 and -71 up till now. Will any of the numbers in the number set that I have seen will add up to the target 20 minus 22? No, not yet. So I will go to -62, minus 62 and 22 does not add up to target. Similarly for these two targets, similarly for these two pairs. Now I will go to 40 and I will check whether, and I do not want to check for repeated elements because I have already checked that for this. So for the current element 40, I need to see what other pairs, what other numbers can pair up to the current number, that is 40, that will add up to target. So for 40, 22 is not good, minus 71 is not good, but minus 62 is good. So this is one approach which is not that natural. Most likely if you're solving this manually, your brain is most likely to solve this problem in this way. And this might not be the worst case of this problem because these two pairs might be present in the last. So you have to remember all the numbers in that case. But for most of the cases, for average of the cases, you can save some space by storing only those information that you have just seen. So if we want to change our approach, what we can do is, instead of storing all the elements in the dictionary first, we can start traversing directly in for index and element in enumerated input array nums. I have to first create a dictionary again, but that will be an empty dictionary currently. And for each traversal, I will store, just like previous, the element as the key and the index as its value. And once this is done, I will check if element, if target minus element is present in the dictionary or not. And if it is, I can return my index, current index, and the value that is present in the dictionary, that is target minus element. But there is some problem over here. What we are doing over here is we are storing the current element in the index, and then we are trying to find the elements in that dictionary. So this will break over here. In this input, if we are storing this 3 in our dictionary in the first step, and then we are checking whether 6 minus 3, that is 3, is present in the dictionary or not. We are using the same element twice. So instead of storing the elements first in the dictionary, you can move this line after, you can add an element to a dictionary after you have checked all the elements in the previous dictionary. And so this is our second approach. And if I submit this approach is also accepted. So these are the two approaches, that is, one was derived from manual approach, and the second approach, that is this, is derived from the manually hard approach step. In this way, we have solved the two-sum problem and seen how to use these sites effectively to learn the problem solving ability. If you have any doubts, feel free to comment and I will try to respond as soon as possible. You may also comment on content suggestions or feedback. Share this video to your friends who might find this video helpful. You can connect to me via LinkedIn, whose link is in the description. Here are some other videos and playlists that you might want to watch. And I will see you in the next video.